Hi. Well, first of all, I'm filming this on a Lumix GF3. This camera's from 2011. It's 13 years old. I'm shooting in motion JPEG at 12, the 1280 by 720, which is totally fine. Now, motion JPEG essentially is just individual JPEG frames every 30 frames a second or 24, whatever the camera's doing. So there's no temporal compression. It's just basically like intra-eye in common day, in what we use today. So it's really just an amazing video format. And I just want to do this to say again, that you can get cameras from 10 years ago that are perfectly fine. They just don't have all the bells and whistles. Like, obviously this doesn't do great autofocus and stuff like that. But that's not because I can't sit behind the camera and, manually focus. I just see the camera right there, right? It's just a... So anyway, I just wanted to, first I was going to shoot with the Sony a7S II I have, or the GH6, and I thought, no, I'm just going to use this alt thing just to hammer home the point. And all the stuff that I'm going to talk about in this video about the RAW, again, it's not about, resolution or new bells and whistles. It's just about like I'm trying to find a camera or a process to take these videos in Dennehy Park about getting old. So, anyway, so in this video I'm going to talk about, so I had the SL1, the Canon SL1, running Bilal Fakhouris Magic Lantern build, which I really liked. And I was using a 17 to 50 millimeter Sigma DC lens, which I really loved. And then I thought, I want to get a T5i, so I've been shopping eBay, and then finally I saw one, and they're about like $180 or something like that, I think, the body only. And then I saw one with the Sigma DC 18 to 200 millimeter, and it'll take a little while for it to focus on this, but also look at the focus distancing, because I'm going to talk about that in a second, and that'll take a while to focus on me, and of course I'll go in and out a little bit. So anyway, so I saw this on eBay. It's $350, shipping and taxes, everything included. What was interesting, the eBay ad, it had like a very cheap SD card, but the SD card I got was a 256, SanDisk 3. It's like a $40 card. So, that was a good eBay purchase. Okay, so I got this camera. I loaded Magic Lantern on it. I started shooting with it. The reason I wanted it is because it has a flip screen, so I could see myself, and also I could rotate it like this, because I often hold the camera like that, like this. So that's why I wanted that. So I loaded it, and then I worked on trying to get it where I could see what's in front of me, and if I couldn't read the screen, see the focus peaking, which I can't in broad daylight, just set this here. And it works very well, like for me just to set it from 18 millimeter, let's just say, to 135 millimeter. I can basically set it to its markings here. If I think something's like 10 feet, it works pretty well. But once it goes beyond 135 to 200, then it really goes down. So if I was normally going to shoot like 10 feet at 18 millimeter, it would be more like 9 feet at 200 millimeter. And then like a quarter inch down from the infinity marking. But the bigger problem is it's really fine, so you can't just set it. I mean, you really need the focus peaking to get it just right. It's the really high 200 millimeter thing. So that's what I learned about the manual focusing thing. Now, one surprise I had, which is really cool, is that this lens has optical stabilization on it. The 17 to 50 has it too. And even at 200 millimeter, with the optical stabilization, I could get it it would shake a little bit, but like an artistic shake. Like, it was amazing, how well the stabilization works. This is an old lens too. So, so I'm very happy. The stabilization works great on this lens. And so, that's been a pleasant surprise. So anyway, so I was going to do the video about that, and then I also noticed that if I overexpose the image, Magic Lantern RAW and if you think about it, it makes sense, right? You're sending all these huge, large 14-bit values to the card, and it just starts to drop frames, and then you might quit altogether. So I learned, don't overexpose your image in Magic Lantern. So anyway, I was going to do a video just about that, and the stabilization, and and setting manual focus. And then I have this software Filmora. So I had Adobe Cloud, but I left them for the reasons most people leave them. And then in its replacement, you know, you can get all these other inexpensive or even free software, and each have little benefits. So there's CapCut, and there's Filmora, and I use Canon Live, and I use Shotcut. You know, I use a bunch of these things. So Filmora was like $60 a year. Now, Filmora has a really easy to use color matching thing. So I put just for, you know, giggles, I shot some RAW and some H.264 on this camera, and then I just did the matching in Filmora. I'm like, oh my god, like the H.264 looks just like, you know, just like the RAW. Now it's not completely, but like my wife wouldn't be able to tell the difference, and that's a big thing. So, and we have to keep that in mind about RAW. I mean, RAW is great, it has some benefits, and it definitely it has some benefits, but most people aren't going to see them. So, you know, just have to keep ourselves honest. I have to keep myself honest. So if like the story is like the most important part, if I'm going to go up to the park and do something about getting old, I should just shoot H.264 on this camera, or my GH6, whatever, you know what I mean? I don't need to shoot RAW. If I'm really trying to invoke a certain kind of look or feel in the image, then yeah, shoot RAW. But what this whole exercise has taught me, and what I realized, is that when I shoot RAW and I bring it into MLV app or any other app, like the first sort of like grade or the first moving the RAW into Rec 709 space, it looks near perfect to me. It always looks like the best to me. I'll tweak the color and exposure a little bit, but it's like almost perfect. Whereas all H.264 video to me is very opinionated. You know what I mean? Like it's very contrasty, or it's like certain colors are very rich. Yeah, it's just opinionated. So that sort of confuses me, makes me think, oh, I don't like the H.264 RAW because, you know, it's just too sharp, or it's contrasty, or the colors are bright, or, you know what I'm saying? So what RAW does is that when I match the H.264 to RAW, I wasn't really then it looked really good. So in a sense, what RAW is teaching me is what image I really like, and I now need to start thinking like, okay, the H.264 footage I get from any of these cameras, any of these profiles, is very opinionated, and I need to just find what look I want and use that. And it doesn't mean getting, you know, when these color, I forget what they're called, these grading things like that. To me, that I'm never going to go that. But anyway, that's an interesting thing to me that I've learned from this, is that RAW shows me the image I really want, and I don't need to shoot it all the time. I'm going to shoot H.266. First go to that look, which is, for me, just slightly desaturated and not overexposed. Not overexposed is the wrong word, but where you don't favor a brighter picture for more detail. You know, I don't mind like loss of detail. So anyway, I just want to do this introduction video before all the other stuff. Again, I'm shooting on a Lumix GF3. I bet it's $100 on eBay. I meant to do that before I shot this, but you know, this whole video has been delayed over and over again because of, you know, my grandchildren, work, all this stuff. Like, this stuff is all, I got to get this particular video out. So anyway, very happy with my T5i with the 18-200, and maybe I'm going to put more of the GF3 into the mix here. Oh, it's with the 25mm 1.7 lens. As you can probably notice, plenty of black background blur, right? Again, one of the first MFD cameras. And it also got me to think, this last thing, like, yeah, just how innovative Panasonic was, because I love this camera. I had a GM1, I love that camera. The only problem with that camera is it broke. I dropped it like literally like 1 foot and it broke. They're just very flimsy cameras, but they're awesome cameras, awesome. I really miss those little cameras, and I don't think Lumix is making these little rangefinders anymore, which I think is a shame. I mean, anyway, always a rabbit hole, right? Anyway, okay, on to the footage about my experience running RAW on the T5i with the 18-200mm lens. If you look at my forehead on the left, you can see that it's just slightly blown out, but I'll be able to correct that in RAW, just pulling down the highlights a bit. Alright, so here I pulled down the highlights all the way in the MLV app, and you see on the left side of my forehead is no longer blown out like it was before. So I'm pretty much happy for this image. Here's the H.264 with nothing done to it, just the way it is. Alright, so here is the H.264, and I did a color match with the raw output, and I pulled down the highlights all the way and the exposure a little bit. And now this image is very close to what the raw is, so this really challenges, your or my, belief that raw gives a superior image to 264. So anyway, well, here it is. I mean, I can't just lie with the results. This looks very close to the raw. Though again, the raw still is a little bit better, but of course the raw in the sky is a little bit blown out. Here it's not. The raw allowed me to bring down the overexposure of my forehead, but then the sky looks better in this video. So yeah, always 6 of one, half dozen of another. Just to be clear, the image that I get from the raw data is better. It's just, I don't know what we call micro contrast or something. It's just a little bit more detail in the shadows and everything. But the point I want to make is that I don't think my wife or any normal person would notice a difference between the H.264 and this footage from raw. Of course, I know the difference. That's why I like it. That's why I do it. But just wanted to explain that. So I went up to Dennehy Park, and I purposely shot some footage first in RAW and then in H.264, the neutral profile. And then I'd go into, well, first in MLV app, I'd sort of correct the footage so how it looked good to me, how I wanted it. And then I would use Filmora, which has a easy to use color matching, and then match it to that. And so that's what you're looking at here. So hopefully just look through these clips and see, how do you see a difference here between the processing the video from RAW from H.264. Again, I don't think my wife could tell a difference. That's sort of my gold standard. So yeah, look at this video, and then afterwards I'm going to go through the steps of how I processed it.
Spray, it's interesting.
Alright, my process would be to take my MLV file and drag it over to the MLV app. And once here, I generally don't do much. Well, I guess the first thing I would do is I'd pull down the saturation all the way, and then I would adjust the exposure to how I sort of looked at it, and also keep sort of an eye on the histogram up here. So I sort of pull it up. I always want to keep like a full black, so I could adjust it to so the black of the bench and the black of the garbage can are good. I don't mind everything else being gray as long as I have, in a sense, these two reference blacks. I don't mind that there's a lot of glare in it because it is a glary day. So once I have that exposure set based on the black and whites, then I'll bring up the saturation to what I like, and then I'll do a temperature. I'll do a temperature gray area here, and that's about it. So I mean, I like this image. This image is pretty much exactly how it looked when I was there, and well, that's the image that I like. And then I would go into File, well, there's export settings. So generally I'm using ProRes 444, but if you want to be serious, probably the best thing to do is Cinema DNG. So I'd use one of those if I was going to put it into DaVinci Resolve and do some serious stuff. But you know, I don't really do serious stuff, so anyway, I'm just leave that alone. ProRes 444 is good enough for me. And then I would export it. And so let's go on to the next part. Okay, so here's my here's a video from MPV app, and now here's the matching footage. In a sense, I shot the same scene with H.264. So I got down this rabbit hole. There's different scenes in this, but so here's the video from the camera, and if you click on here in Filmora, now just a little side note, I used to have Adobe Cloud Suite, but Adobe became so obnoxious I just canceled it. And then I just got a whole bunch of other different software like this. I think Filmora I got for like $60 for the year. And I have Canon Live, and I use DaVinci Resolve, and you know, CapCut. So each of these software are pretty inexpensive, and they all have these really neat features. So it's to me much better than Adobe Premiere, which is like a trying to do everything application. So like one of the really cool things about Filmora is this little like cut button. So as you move the playhead, you can just click on this and cut the scene. That is so cool. They should all have that. And but they probably don't because it's pride. But you know, Filmora, again, you put this obvious thing in here. This thing's awesome. Anyway, so I click on the second clip, and it has this very easy to use color match thing. And again, you can do this in Premiere and these other software, but this thing makes it as easy as you can imagine. So on the right here is the clip from the H.264 from the camera. As you can see, I'm scrubbing it around. So I'm scrub down to here where the tree and the garbage can are in the same scene. And then when I go to color match, I can now move this till it sort of matches there, and just hit match. You see, matches the scene. So now if I go between both clips, you can see how the same they look.